Welcome, everyone, to Learning Lab live sessions. My name is Amanda, and I'm the writing specialist in the Northridge Learning Lab. Today, we are going to be talking about some basics of essay writing, things to get you started writing essays for your writing intensive classes. If you've not written an essay in a while, or you have written essays recently, but you just want a refresher or to learn some new skills. So this session is being recorded. If you want more information, click on the first link in the chat box. And the files that I show you during today's workshop are available at the link that is listed second in the chat box. Please keep your microphones muted most of the time. Please unmute your microphone if you would like to ask a question. You're welcome to ask questions at any time, and you're also welcome to put questions in the chat box at any time. So, the first thing that we should consider when writing an essay is planning. For many students, just figuring out how to start planning can be the hardest task. So, my first question for you is, why do I have to plan? Why can't I just sit down and start writing my essay from beginning to end? Does anyone have any ideas? You can unmute yourself or put your ideas in the chat box. Yes, we might just ramble without a plan. Very good, Amber. Yes, to keep yourself from being overwhelmed and disorganized while writing. Having a plan makes it much easier to write your essay efficiently and to organize your ideas. Planning and organization can sometimes make the writing process shorter as well as easier, because you're not giving yourself too much work to do at the wrong stages. So maybe in the past you've successfully sat down and just written an essay from beginning to end. Some people can do that very well, but many students cannot. And even if it's been working for you up until now, you'll likely reach a point in your educational career where that's no longer the best system for you. Some other things planning does for you: you don't have to invest all of your time in perfectly crafting all of your sentences until you're certain that the ideas are right. If you change the ideas later and you've spent a lot of time on sentences that you're just going to have to remove, that's not a very efficient way to go about doing your writing. If you sit down and just start writing your essay from beginning to end, you're likely writing the essay in order. But that's not always the best way to write an essay. Often, it's more effective to write the body paragraphs and then work on the intro and the conclusion. It's especially important to plan your quotes in advance so that you're making the best use of them and putting them in places where they'll have the most impact. When you're planning, you will ideally be planning and brainstorming more ideas than you need for a paper. But that's not wasted time, because that generates your ideas in your writing process, and you can then pick from all the ideas, pick the ones that will be most effective for your essay. So I'm going to start by demonstrating or giving you a pre-writing exercise to do. If you have a writing prompt for your class that you want to work on, feel free to use that writing prompt. I'm not going to ask you to share your answers. These answers are for you. If you do not have a writing assignment that you're currently working on, then here's one that you can consider, a question that you can consider. What is the most important thing you're going to learn in college? And so we are going to work on brainstorming and pre-writing. In a moment, I'm going to put a timer on the screen. And what I want you to do is to write as fast and hard as you can for 3 minutes. You might pull out a piece of paper to do this. You might use the notepad on your phone. You might use Google Docs, whatever method is most accessible to you. So what you will do is write and write hard. What you will not want to do is censor your ideas. Write down every idea that comes to your mind, even if it doesn't seem like a good idea. Don't judge your ideas. Don't worry about flow or connection. Don't worry about quality. Don't think of this as a first draft. We are just generating ideas. So if you have a topic you want to use that one. If you do not have a topic, then you can use the topic, what's the most important thing that you think you're going to learn in college? You don't need to worry about giving answers that will change your life. You just want to have ideas. Ready? Go. The timer will be finished when the sun sets and you see the moon on the screen. All right, our timer is finished. Hopefully you generated some good ideas. Sometimes 3 minutes can seem like forever, and sometimes 3 minutes can seem like it's not enough time. Putting yourself on a timer can be a good way to generate ideas because it forces you to keep moving and keep writing without thinking too much about what you're doing. Once you have finished your brainstorming, once you have finished your pre-writing, then you want to start organizing your ideas. A good step to follow next is using an outline. Now, there are several different ways to outline to organize all of those ideas that you've generated, and I'm going to show you a couple of them. One that's really popular is the mind map or cluster map. So, mind mapping can be really good for people who are visual learners, who like to draw, who like to see things laid out on a page. And this is especially useful because most people don't think in a linear hierarchy. So, with a cluster map, you start with your main idea in the center. In this case, our main idea would be the thing that we said is the most important thing that you'll learn in college. For my pre-writing, I selected time management. So this black dot in the middle would be time management. That's my important thing. And then a 5-paragraph essay is one of the most common kinds in college, so that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to assume 5 body paragraphs, an intro, a conclusion, and 3 body paragraphs. So now time management is our main idea, and we need 3 important things about time management. Those will be your 3 body paragraph ideas branching off for the main one. So I might say time management is important so I can make sure I get everything done, number 1. So I can make sure that I'm always leaving on time, number 2. And so I cannot stress out about whether I'll have time for all of my activities, number 3. Each one of those would support the main idea. After that, we need our details. When I say get everything done, what do I mean? Can I give some examples? And that's what these red supporting details would be. More information, examples to tell us about that body paragraph idea. If you attended Monday's workshop on outlining, then you saw the hierarchical outline. This is the one that I like to use the most. And this is probably one that you'll see fairly often. For a 5-paragraph essay, you'll have your introduction, you'll have 3 body paragraphs, and you'll have a conclusion. And generally, the first thing that you want to do is plan out what those 3 body paragraphs are going to be. We know that every essay will have a thesis. The thesis tells the reader what the essay is going to be about, but if you've not planned out what's going to be in the body, that makes it really hard to write the thesis. And that is one reason why starting your essay from beginning to end is often not the best way to approach it. Always pay attention to your professor's instructions for what the organization of an essay should look like, what kind of content you should have in each paragraph, and what your thesis will look like. What we're talking about today are some good general guidelines if you've not been given more specific instructions. Now, what's the purpose of an introduction? Can anyone tell me? Yes, Todd, give the audience broad strokes to put it into perspective. It gives the audience a general introduction to your topic. What is the purpose of a conclusion? Yes, to summarize and highlight important parts. So, when you're writing an introduction, you want to begin broadly and then narrow down to the particular thesis. You'll start with general details and you'll end with specifics. With the conclusion, you're usually doing the opposite. You will restate the thesis, rephrase your thesis in different words, and then you will remind the reader what the most important parts of the essay were, the most important ideas, etc. Now, this might seem like it's really repetitive, and it often does seem a little repetitive when you're only writing 5-paragraph essays. But later on in your academic career, when you're writing more complicated essays, this will be a really good way to focus in on those very important ideas throughout a much longer and more complicated paper. If you look at the documents that are available to you in that link that's in the chat box, you'll see a sample persuasive essay outline along with a sample persuasive essay. And this will show you how the thesis and topic sentences go together. This is a sample paper on why muffins are the ideal breakfast food. So there are 3 body paragraphs. The first body paragraph idea: muffins are easy to eat. Well, how do I know that they're easy to eat? What do I mean by that? Here are 3 examples to explain what I mean by easy to eat. Number 2, muffins are environmentally friendly. What do I mean by that? Here are some more details underneath. Body paragraph 3, they taste good. What do I mean by that? Here are some more details underneath. So idea 1, 2, and 3. All of these are combined in the same order to make the thesis. Muffins are the perfect breakfast food because they're easy to eat, environmentally friendly, and they taste good. Now, if we scroll down to this exceptionally short sample paper, you'll see that I've numbered these. The thesis has all 3 points numbered. The topic sentences also have all 3 points numbered. So number 1 in the thesis will match number 1 in the paragraph, 2 will match 2, and 3 will match 3. They're not phrased the exact same way, but I can see the ideas in the same order. The human brain likes patterns, so if you've told your reader that ideas are going to be coming in a particular order, it's often best to stick to that order. If you have a reason to go out of order, then make sure that you have a transition to let the reader know that different kinds of information are coming. Now, let's talk a little more about paragraphs. A topic sentence does for a paragraph what a thesis does for the entire paper. A concluding sentence does for a paragraph what a conclusion does for the entire paper. The concluding sentence is also a good way to transition into the next idea. How long should a paragraph be? Any guesses? 5 to 10 sentences, 4 to 7 sentences. All good answers. How long it must be? Yeah, long enough. That's going to vary depending on what you actually need for your paper. But here are some general guidelines that you can consider. 3 sentences is the minimum for a full paragraph. You're usually going to need at least 4 sentences. 3 is the minimum, but I would say 4 is a better goal. And always pay attention to what your professor has given you as the minimum length for a full paragraph. You don't want your paragraphs to be too long, or the lack of white space is going to make it difficult for your reader to follow your ideas, no matter how interesting those ideas are. So, if your paragraph is taking up more than 1/2 to 3/4 of the page, consider if you need all of that information in one paragraph or if it would be better split into smaller paragraphs. Again, consider what you actually need for the paper and what your professor's instructions are for that paper. These are some general guidelines. Now, even if the assignment that you are working on right now does not use quotes, you will eventually be using quotes in your writing. How many quotes should you have in a paragraph? All right, I see two. I see one. Anyone have a different answer? As before, the answer is really as many as you need. I find in actual practice that two is often a good number. 2 to 3 is what I see most often being effective, especially in composition 2 papers. One thing that you should be very certain of, you should not have more quotes than you do your own writing. If your professor uses SafeAssign on Blackboard, the plagiarism scan, that is a great tool to help you out because if it's bringing up a large number, that might mean that even if you are not plagiarizing, you could be overquoting. If you find that you have more quotes than you do your own writing, then consider whether you have enough analysis. And you might also need to change some of your direct quotes, taking things word for word from your source, to indirect quotes, taking someone else's ideas with a citation, but phrasing them in your own words. For many of the kinds of writing that you'll do at ACC, you are unlikely to need very long quotes, meaning quotes that are 4 lines of the paper long or more. Check if your professor has rules about using long quotes, but whenever you have one, consider if that's the most effective way to quote your source. Now, our final major topic for this workshop is going to be analysis. Can anyone tell me what analysis is for or what it does in our papers? Good. Thinking about the topic, you thinking about the topic, interpreting what the author says. Very good. And if you're sitting there in front of your computer thinking, I don't know what analysis is for, that's fine. It's the beginning of the semester, and that's what we're here to learn. Good, Amber. Interpretation and opinions. You're going to start off your essays by presenting information from someone else. Facts, story summaries, things in the news, depends on your topic. Analysis interprets those facts or pieces of information. It gives it significance, context, purpose, etc. What the analysis will look like depends on your topic, and much of the time you'll be using analysis along with quotes. So here's the way I like to explain the process of analysis to someone. So first, you give an idea. Then you ask yourself, how do I know that's true? Here's a quote. And then the most important part, so what? Why do I care about that quote? Why do I care about that piece of information? What's its significance? Why is it important or surprising or noteworthy? What am I supposed to do with that piece of information? And so this is often the process that you'll follow for writing a paragraph. you'll give an idea. So back to my time management example. Let's say my main idea is if I have good time management in college, I won't stress out because I don't have enough time. So what? Can I give a quote about time management? Can I give a piece of researched information about having enough time? Why do I care about that piece of information? Why will that help me? Why does presenting that quote help me understand these facts? If you've heard the term show, don't tell before, that is relevant here. You're not just telling the reader what the facts are, you are showing the reader the significance of those facts. So, generally, some things to avoid in essays and avoid when doing analysis. Avoid summarizing too much. You may need to do some summarizing depending on your topic, but summarizing is likely to just appear in your introduction where you're giving a general overview of the topic. Let's say you're talking about a short story. In your body paragraphs, you may need to mention points in that short story so that the reader knows what part of the story you're referring to, but you're not going to do major summarizing in the body unless your instructions have said so. Avoid listing facts without context. We don't just need to know the information, we need to know what you think and what you understand about the information. Listing facts will tell us that you have a list of facts, but it doesn't tell us whether you've understood those facts, and that's what analysis is for. Final notes. What can you assume about your reader? How do I know how much to quote in my paper? How do I know how much detail I need to give when reminding the reader what point in the short story I'm referring to? That is a good place to consult your professor. You can ask, what should I assume about the person reading my essay? Should I assume the person reading my essay knows the material we've covered in class, has read this short story, knows it really well, knows all of the vocabulary? If you don't have any guidelines, here are some general things that are likely to be true. You can often assume that the reader has the same level of education that you do, has read the text that you're working with, is familiar with the class vocabulary, and is generally familiar with what has been presented in lectures. So if you're writing a paper, you're going to be writing it on the level of someone who is in the class with you, probably not writing it for someone with a PhD or someone who hasn't started college yet. Your professor is a good person to consult on exactly what level you need. Exactly. Don't dumb it down. Identify and define the terms that you need to, but work on having a good understanding of what terms are necessary to define. So that is your crash course in getting started writing essays. Does anyone have any questions? All right, thank you all very much for coming. And if you would like some individual help working on your pre-writing, feel free to schedule an appointment with any of the English tutors at the Learning Labs. We are here for you. Thank you.